Hey everyone. So, it's no secret we love spiders on this channel. Some of you may have seen my previous videos, or come in with prior knowledge yourselves, and therefore be aware of exactly why spiders are objectively cool. But if you're new around here, let me catch you up to speed. Spiders are everywhere. They're an extremely successful group of animals. They belong to the class Arachnida. However, all other arachnids of the same weight class pale in comparison to the success of the spider. There are so many species of spiders that I struggle to think of a single order of animals that contains more species, other than a few orders of insects. This is pretty incredible, considering that the best any animal on this planet can do is desperately try to hold a candle to the success of the insects. Well, let's talk about insects for a second, because their existence is critical to the success of spiders. See, spiders are practically the best insect hunters in the world. A group of scientists in Sweden once came up with a complicated math problem meant to calculate how many insects spiders all around the world eat in a single year. In terms of biomass, it was calculated that spiders devoured at a minimum 400 million metric tons of insects in 1 year. For reference, the tallest skyscrapers in the United States don't weigh that much. Now, I find that statistic really impressive, and it goes to show how intimately connected spiders are to their main prey. This type of relationship in nature only works if the prey in question is part of a very successful group, and like I alluded to before, insects are the most successful animal lineage of all time. Whether you measure by number of individual species or by the amount of biomass a group of animals takes up, insects leave all other animals in the dust. This is due to a ridiculous number of adaptations that they often possess. Some of the biggest ones are flight and holometabolism, but they also have pheromones, they have compound eyes, tough exoskeletons, mimicry, chemical defenses, poisons, venoms, camouflage, color vision, and the ability to live in different biomes like underground or underwater, just to name a few. Not all adaptations are created equal though, and some are a bit more bland than usual. Silk production is one of them. Now, don't get me wrong, the ability to create silk does seem like a really intricate adaptation, but it's quite common in the arthropod world. Obviously spiders do it, and so can silkworms, but so can other caterpillars, bees, ants, crickets, flies, lacewings, and even crustaceans. If any of these came as a surprise to you, it's probably because silk isn't a core part of their identity. Or because the arthropods who do use it extensively simply aren't successful enough to be talked about. Like these guys, for example. Web spinners and amphipods are two of the animal groups that use silk the most, but if you've previously heard of either of them, I have to assume you're in the minority here. Well, this brings us back to spiders. Now, it's not debatable whether spiders are a successful group of animals or not, because they're literally everywhere. And like we discussed, that's because they're so good at eating insects. But other arachnids like scorpions, camel spiders, and vinegaroons don't hold a candle to the success of their spider cousins. Heck, even a mid-tier insect order like Orthoptera completely blows those arachnid orders out of the water. Not spiders, though. Spiders, unlike their arachnid cousins, can easily hold their own against the success of the insects, and it's because they gained access to a secret weapon that the rest of the invertebrate world wasn't ready for. Surprise, surprise, this weapon is called silk. There's a common saying where I'm from that goes, "When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade." It's referencing how one should learn to make the best use of the resources available. Well, if we continue with this metaphor, we could say that when life gave spiders lemons, spiders made lemonade, a couple beach chairs, a table, an umbrella, and a tip jar, with a bunch of cash in it. I'm not really exaggerating here. Spiders do so much more with silk than every other silk spinner that it's downright baffling. The easiest way to see this is to look at one of the webs that has stood the test of time, the orb web. An orb web is a two-dimensional silk structure that's meant to intercept flying prey. What looks like a structure made of simple spider silk is actually made from materials that are far from simple. And this is because we tend to think of spider silk as one material that is light, thin, stretchy, and sticky, when in fact, spiders have multiple types of silk, each with their own properties. Orb weavers and other silk spinning spiders usually have 7 types of silk glands that produce 7 types of silk. 5 of them are used in the construction of orb webs. What this means for the spider's web is that it's equipped to solve multiple problems simultaneously. An orb web needs to be well supported, but not heavy, strong, but elastic, and sticky, but not to the point of immobilizing the spider. A spider achieves this by using the right types of silk in the right places. For example, have you ever wondered why spiders don't get stuck in their own webs? There are a few reasons for this. First, they have claws on their feet that they hold onto the web with, so they don't have to touch it with their skin. Even if they did touch the web, though, they have hairs on their legs that are resilient to their glue-like silk. But additionally, the entire web isn't made of glue-like silk. Sticky spider silk is comprised of silk from a spider's aggregate glands, and the spider only applies the silk in the form of little glue droplets around the web. If the spider doesn't step on the parts of the web where it put the glue, then it has no issue. But aggregate silk is only one of the crucial ingredients for a powerful orb web. Orb weaver spiders, like most web builders, can't fully control what type of animal crashes into their web. This means they have to be prepared for worst-case scenarios, like giant insects crashing into them, whose mass and velocity would easily break apart a structure as light as a spider web. That is, it would, if it weren't for flagelliform silk. See, the secret that orb weavers use to snare prey that's way above their weight class isn't actually to make their webs super tough, it's to make the webs super stretchy. Flagelliform silk is used to create the capture spiral, and it's the same silk that the spider puts aggregate glue balls on. What makes flagelliform silk special is its unrivaled extensibility. The more flexible a substance is, the more weight it can support without snapping. This means the web has built-in shock absorption that can easily cancel out the momentum of a large flying animal. But that doesn't mean a spider's web can't also be strong. In fact, for a long time, major ampulate silk held the record for the strongest animal-made material in the world. Before an orb weaver makes its fancy spiral, it must complete the frame of its web. That's done with silk from its ampulate glands. This is also the silk that spiders use to make draglines as they walk. Put a pin on draglines for now. We'll come back to them. For now, just know that major ampulate silk is as tough as materials come as far as tensile strength is concerned. So much so that it's captured the imagination of material scientists for decades now. After all, what couldn't you do with a material that's antimicrobial, biodegradable, hypoallergenic, elastic, and stronger than steel? It's been theorized we could make unbreakable parachutes and bridge cables, weightless bulletproof armor, self-recycling water bottles, tendons for surgery-performing robots, and even medicinal implants that stimulate bone and nerve regeneration. Well, needless to say, this spider silk isn't on the market just yet. But it's not for lack of trying. We've been unable to reproduce this material that spiders make so effortlessly, and our own efforts to farm spiders for their silk have ended in disaster. Spiders aren't very communal animals, and they will eat each other. Here's what our efficiency currently looks like. There's a golden silk cape that was created in 2012 using the silk of the Madagascar orb weaver Trichonephila inaurata. 1.2 million of those spiders were used, to be exact. The process was extremely labor-intensive for both spiders and people. The cape took several years to finish and would probably sell for millions given its rarity. This is a far cry from the efficiency of farming silkworms, which we've been doing for thousands of years. Well, here's the thing. We might not be able to farm spiders the way we can farm moths, but our seemingly limitless technology does give us other options. Lepidopteran silk is remarkably tough on its own, but it pales in comparison to spider silk. However, we're actually able to transplant the genetic code for producing spider silk from a spider to a silk moth. The problems are the silk that's produced tends to still have lower mechanical properties than that made by spiders. It seems that even with the exact instructions for making spider silk implanted in their DNA, Lepidopteran bodies are simply incapable of actually producing the silk without drastically reducing the quality. And Lepidopterans aren't the only ones incapable of this feat. Our gene transplantation efforts have extended to bacteria, yeast, several plants, and even some mammals. None have been able to produce cost-effective spider silk. The process of scrambling powerful proteins, combining them as a liquid, and then weaving them into a solid form is simply too much for the combined efforts of our technology and every other life form we've teamed up with. But again, it's not just about the quality of the silk. Spiders also seem to have limitless applications for their silk compared to other arthropods. To illustrate this, let's actually look at a spider that is famous for not using webs, the wolf spider. You may think that silk wouldn't be very important to the nomadic wolf spiders, but you would be surprised. Like all active hunting spiders, lycosids use dragline silk as added security when climbing high surfaces. Remember how dragline silk spun from the ampullate glands was the strongest silk a spider had access to? Well, that's because of how important it is for the spider that wanders around. A dragline silk essentially acts as a bungee cord that spiders always have access to. And this allows them to have relatively delicate exoskeletons and run at respectable speeds because their draglines will catch them if they end up falling from an otherwise catastrophic height. That's the first advantage. The second is about their eggs. Spiders like wolf spiders will protect their eggs with a silk sac that is resilient to temperature changes and blunt damage. Using their spinnerets, mother wolf spiders can actually attach their eggs to their backside instead of the front. This subtle ability provides two advantages. First, it allows the spider to maintain use of its trademark speed with minimum encumbrance. And second, it gives the baby spiders the opportunity to hop onto their mother's back after birth. Lycosidae is the only spider family that engages in this behavior. It's a good way to get their spiderlings through the most dangerous stage of their life, their first instar. Once their skeletons are sturdy enough, they can hop off and start their lives better prepared. And it's around this time that wolf spiders will use the third silk power, flight. Wolf spiders are notorious ballooners, which means they can release silk to catch air currents and disperse using the wind. This will eventually lead to the spiders spreading through an area much quicker than they would have if they were bound to ground travel their whole lives. These three abilities make wolf spiders one of the most successful spider families, and they show what a powerful adaptation silk can be even when not used for its most famous purpose. Of course, as soon as we start looking at the spiders who do use silk to hunt, we start uncovering the insane versatility this weapon has. Spiders can make webs to catch things out of the air like orb weavers do. They can make webs to trap prey on the ground like cobweb spiders do. They can make tunnels out of nothing like funnel weavers do. They can create doors from the ground like trapdoor spiders. They can create handheld nets like dinopid netcasting spiders. They can create lassos like the bolus spider. They can create projectile webs like scytodotid spitting spiders. And they can create catapults like the Theridiosoma slingshot spiders. They can even create underwater air pockets like the diving bell spiders. There is seemingly no limit to what spiders can achieve with silk. Just a few weeks before the release of this video, a headline that was in the news told of a 1,000-foot web that was found in a cave under Greece and Albania. Apparently, over 100,000 spiders belonging to two different species were found living on it. This was actually discovered a few years back, but it was just this year that an actual biologist studied the species in that cave. Now imagine my surprise when I came to find out one of the spiders was the good old barn funnel weaver, Tegenaria domestica. If you live in an English-speaking part of the world, chances are you've run into this spider before, possibly in your own residence. You'll be happy to hear that building 1,000-foot webs is not normal behavior for them. What we see going on is diversification within an isolated ecosystem. Here's how the ecosystem works down there. Sulfur springs keep the water very hot in the caves. Bacteria then feed on the hydrogen sulfide on the walls. Those microorganisms are then eaten by the larvae of midges, whose adult forms get stuck in the massive web and become spider food. The two funnel weaving spiders used silk to become the apex predator in the small ecosystem. After enough time passes, the diversification from the non-cave dwelling versions of these species will likely grow so big that they'll become different species. This is a prime example of how silk allows spiders to fill specific niches so quickly. In conclusion, most people will agree that spiders are an incredibly successful clade of animals. They would probably also agree that silk is the primary factor for their success. But what spiders don't get enough credit for is the fact that their secret weapon is one of the most mediocre adaptations in the hands of any other arthropod. Spiders don't have true flight, they don't have complete metamorphosis, and they don't have eusocialism. By all means, they should not be as successful as they are. Spiders took a benign adaptation and used it to take over the world. That's what I find so mind-blowing, and in my opinion, it's what makes spiders the most incredible animal in the world. Alright everyone, thanks so much for watching, and I'm really sorry for the big delays in video production. I'm going to try my best to have another release done by the end of this year, but if you enjoy spider-related content, as always, I encourage you to like and subscribe, because there will be more stuff coming your way, albeit perhaps sometimes very slowly. Thank you all for bearing with me. This has been Arachnoryan. I am now signing off. Peace.